In the 5th century BC, something extraordinary happened. In Greece, Socrates questioned everything. In India, the Buddha taught the end of suffering. In China, Confucius defined ethical governance. In Persia, Zoroaster's followers explored the struggle between good and evil. These thinkers never met, yet they were asking the same questions. How should we live? What is right? What is real? The philosopher Karl Jaspers called this the axial age. But the real story begins after these ideas emerged, because they started to travel across a world far more connected than most people imagine. Between roughly 800 and 200 BC, Karl Jaspers observed in his 1949 work, The Origin and Goal of History, virtually every major philosophical and religious tradition that still shapes the modern world emerged simultaneously. Greek philosophy, Israelite monotheism, Zoroastrianism, Buddhism, Jainism, Confucianism, Taoism. Why did this happen simultaneously? Historians debate it still. Some point to the rise of Iron Age economies that disrupted old aristocratic and priestly orders, creating space for new thinkers. Others point to the growth of literacy and writing, which allowed ideas to be preserved, transmitted, and critiqued for the first time. What is clear is that this was not coincidence. It was a transformation in how human beings related to the world, to power, and to each other. And crucially, these traditions did not stay where they were born. They traveled along the same trade routes that carried silk, spices, and gold. Buddhism is perhaps the clearest example of an idea traveling the ancient trade routes and transforming the civilizations it touched. Born in northern India in the 5th century BC, Buddhism remained largely regional for 2 centuries. Then Ashoka, the Mauryan emperor we met in video 16, converted after the Kalinga massacre and dispatched missionaries in every direction. By the 1st century AD, Buddhist communities existed from Afghanistan to Sri Lanka. Buddhism entered China along the Silk Road in the 1st century AD. Tradition places its official introduction during the Han Dynasty under Emperor Ming around 67 AD. Over the following centuries, it transformed Chinese civilization. Its art, its architecture, its philosophy, its funeral practices, its understanding of time and suffering. The great Buddhist cave complexes of Dunhuang, Longmen, and Yangon, carved between the 4th and 8th centuries AD, are among the most spectacular artistic achievements in human history. And they exist because an Indian idea traveled the Silk Road. From China, Buddhism traveled to Korea, Japan, Vietnam, and across Southeast Asia, where it fused with local traditions to produce the Hindu-Buddhist temple cultures of Angkor and Borobudur. A single idea, born in northern India, reshaped the spiritual lives of over 1 billion people across a dozen cultures. The movement of ideas along ancient trade routes was not limited to religion. The transfer of mathematical and scientific knowledge across civilizations is one of the most consequential and least celebrated stories in intellectual history. Greek mathematics, Euclid's geometry, Archimedes' physics, Ptolemy's astronomy, was translated into Arabic during the 8th and 9th century AD Islamic Golden Age, preserved, extended, and synthesized with Indian and Persian mathematical traditions. The House of Wisdom in Baghdad, founded under the Abbasid Caliph Harun al-Rashid and expanded by al-Mamun in the 9th century, was the greatest intellectual institution of its time, bringing together Greek, Indian, Persian, and Syriac scholarship under one roof. From the Islamic world, this synthesized knowledge traveled back to Europe through the translation movement of 12th century Spain and Sicily, where Arabic texts were rendered into Latin and Greek. The European Renaissance, the scientific revolution, and ultimately the modern world owe an enormous and often unacknowledged debt to this chain of transmission. From Greek thinkers to Indian mathematicians to Arab scholars to medieval European universities. The numerals you use 1 through 9 and 0 made this entire journey. Invented in India, systematized by Arab mathematicians, transmitted to Europe as Hindu-Arabic numerals. Without them, modern mathematics, science, computing, and finance are impossible. The most important intellectual tool in human history traveled from Gupta India to the modern world along ancient trade routes. It was not only ideas and religions that traveled. Technologies, the practical tools of civilization, moved along the same routes, transforming every society they reached. Paper, invented in China around the 2nd century BC and standardized by Ceylon around 105 AD, reached the Islamic world in the 8th century. Reportedly, when Chinese papermakers captured at the Battle of Talas in 751 AD, transmitted their knowledge. From the Islamic world, paper reached Europe in the 12th century, where it eventually made the printing press practical and the Protestant Reformation possible. Gunpowder, also Chinese in origin, developed by Taoist alchemists around the 9th century AD, traveled westward through the Islamic world and reached Europe by the 13th century, where it ended the age of castle warfare and eventually transformed the global military balance in Europe's favor. The compass, another Chinese invention, reached Arab navigators and then European sailors, enabling the age of exploration that reshaped the entire world. The most remarkable product of ancient global connection was not transmission but fusion, the creation of entirely new cultural forms where different traditions met and merged. Gandharan art, produced in modern Afghanistan and Pakistan between the 1st and 5th centuries AD, fuses Greek sculptural style with Buddhist iconography. The earliest images of the Buddha in human form show him dressed in a toga. It exists because Alexander's campaigns brought Greek artistic traditions to the doorstep of India, where Buddhist artists adopted and adapted them. The Swahili language is itself a product of Indian Ocean trade, a Bantu language saturated with Arabic loanwords, born on the East African coast where African and Arab cultures met for centuries. The architecture of Timbuktu fuses North African Islamic and West African Sahelian traditions. The food of Southeast Asia carries the fingerprints of Indian, Chinese, Arab, and indigenous traditions in every dish. The ancient world was not a collection of isolated civilizations. It was a connected world where ideas, technologies, religions, and people moved across continents. Buddhism traveled from India to Japan. Greek knowledge traveled through Baghdad to Europe. Chinese paper and the compass changed the course of history. Indian numerals spread across the globe. Every civilization built on something borrowed. Every world-changing idea had traveled before. The ancient trade routes were not just commercial networks. They were the circulatory system of human civilization, and the ideas they carried still flow through our world today.